I've recently been diagnosed with Parkinson's.
That was one of football's greatest quarterbacks when he made a confession that shook the entire NFL community. Brett Favre revealed he's been battling a disease that's robbing him of his ability to move, to swallow, and live a normal life. But here's what people are getting wrong about what's happening to him right now. The revelation. A Hall of Famer who spent 2 decades slinging footballs across frozen fields in Green Bay is now fighting a progressive neurological disease that didn't show up until after his career was over. The question everyone's asking is whether Parkinson's disease is actually getting worse for Brett Favre, or whether we're all just watching a disease do what every disease in that category does by nature progress.
I've recently been diagnosed with Parkinson's.
That announcement came on September 24, 2024, during a congressional hearing about welfare reform and TANF issues in Mississippi. Not at a press conference, not in some big interview or podcast episode, but in front of lawmakers while Favre was testifying about a failed investment in a company developing a breakthrough concussion drug. He didn't sugarcoat it. He said it straight. It was too late for him. He had Parkinson's. Favre was diagnosed in January 2024 after noticing issues with his right arm and hand. He went to see multiple doctors before anyone figured out what was actually happening to his body. For months, this man knew something was wrong. He felt it in his movements. His instincts screamed that something had changed in his nervous system, and the medical system eventually caught up to what his body had been telling him all along.
Overall, I feel I can't complain. It's one of those things that I'm learning a lot about Parkinson's, and my Parkinson's was caught very early, very early. In fact, my doctor said you may be the earliest patient I've ever seen to come in.
The fact that his condition was caught so early was actually a blessing in disguise, because it meant his doctors could start managing it before the symptoms became completely debilitating. But early detection doesn't mean the disease isn't still advancing at its own pace.
Being an athlete, being in tune with your body, the least little thing out of whack, you notice where normal people don't.
What Favre understood immediately was that he wasn't dealing with a typical sports injury or a condition that rehab could fix. Parkinson's disease is a progressive neurodegenerative disorder affecting movement, caused by the loss of dopamine-producing neurons in the brain. The symptoms often include tremors, stiffness, slowed movement, balance issues, and swallowing difficulties. While not curable, it is manageable with medication, exercise, and lifestyle changes. But that management isn't a cure. It's a lifelong negotiation with a disease that doesn't stop attacking your body just because you had a good day or took your medicine on time. Favre attributed his condition to the thousands of concussions he estimates suffering during his 20-season NFL career from 1991 through 2010, which is a known risk factor for Parkinson's development. The timing of this diagnosis matters. Favre is now 54 years old. He's lived through an entire post-football life, built a career outside the sport with broadcasting and his podcast called Fourth and Favre. The disease showed up during what should have been his peaceful, legacy-enjoying years. Instead, he was delivered a diagnosis that would define the next chapter of his life. What complicates this even further is family history. Favre's father also battled Parkinson's disease, adding a genetic layer to the equation. Was it just bad luck? Was it the thousands of hits to the head? Was it family history? Was it some combination of all of those things working together? The answer is that nobody can say for certain, and that uncertainty is part of what makes living with this diagnosis so difficult. Favre and doctors primarily point to football-related trauma, but the genetic component remains a complicating factor that nobody can definitively rule out. The symptoms. In the months following his public announcement in September 2024, Favre began to open up about what living with Parkinson's actually feels like on a daily basis, and the details painted a picture that was far more complicated than just having a diagnosis.
I try not to think about it. I try to just focus on getting after the day.
By early September 2025, Favre was describing something that a lot of people don't immediately think about when they hear the word Parkinson's. Most people think about the shaking. Most people think about famous faces like Michael J. Fox or Muhammad Ali, both iconic figures associated with the disease. But Favre's dominant symptoms are rigidity and stiffness rather than constant tremors, especially on his right side. The stiffness was worsening old joint issues from his past. He described waking up in the morning feeling like a wooden board, like his whole right side was locked up and difficult to move until his medication kicked in several hours later.
When I wake up in the morning, I feel like a board.
That's not just poetic description. That's a man describing the physical reality of what his body has become. But there's more to it than just the stiffness he experiences in those early morning hours.
I don't need any help because of football to be any stiffer.
That's a man experiencing his body as something that refuses to cooperate with even basic movement. His hands wouldn't respond the way they used to. Automatic tasks had become something he had to think about and work through. And he was clear about something else that scared him more than the rigidity itself.
I have a hard time swallowing. There's times where I think I'm choking. It's sort of scary because there's They can't fix that.
Think about that for a moment. Swallowing is something most people do without even thinking about it. You eat breakfast, you drink water, your body handles it automatically. For Favre, something as fundamental as eating had become unpredictable and frightening. Sometimes he felt like he was choking, sometimes his throat just wouldn't cooperate. And the scary part, from his perspective, is that doctors can manage the stiffness with medication. They can try to slow the progression with exercise and treatment, but when your throat stops working the way it's supposed to, when the muscles that control swallowing start to fail, that's something the medical community still doesn't have a good solution for. You can't surgically fix swallowing. You can't medicate it away. You just have to live with it and adjust. In December 2025 and early 2026, on his podcast called Fourth and Favre, Favre provided detailed updates about his situation. He confirmed that he was dealing with idiopathic Parkinson's, which is the most common form of the disease. He discussed how morning stiffness was a significant issue and how fatigue would build up later in the day, making evenings harder than mornings or midday. The disease wasn't just about physical symptoms. It was about managing energy, managing pain, managing fear, all while trying to maintain some quality of life. He acknowledged that he'd lost some running ability. He reported that he stayed highly active, still biking over 6,200 miles in a single year, which is an insane amount of physical activity when you consider that his body is fighting a progressive neurological disease every single day. This wasn't a man giving up. This was a man treating his health like it was a new challenge to overcome.
The hope is something, on the horizon comes out that can stop the progression.
For Favre, the possibility of a breakthrough treatment or cure wasn't just wishful thinking. It was a real hope that kept him pushing forward. He understood that medical science was advancing, and treatments that didn't exist even a few years ago might be available soon.
If that happened within the next year or so, my where I am is so early. Maybe we can't backtrack to where I was normal before, but at least I don't shake very bad.
The fact that his condition was caught so early meant that if a breakthrough treatment came soon, he might be able to stop the progression at a point where his symptoms were still manageable. That possibility, that window of opportunity, was something he held on to. By January 2026, Favre addressed something that had gone viral on social media. Someone had posted something suggesting that he'd given up hope, that he was at the end of his rope with the disease. Favre pushed back hard on that narrative. He said the disease had progressed a little faster than he would have hoped, but he wasn't giving up. He was fighting until the end. He was looking into clinical trials. He was pursuing treatment options that might not have existed 5 years ago. He was praying for a cure that might come within 5 to 10 years. He was trying multiple approaches simultaneously. He was clear on one point: no way in hell am I giving up. That's the quote that matters. That's the reality of what's happening with Favre's health situation, not the sensational headlines about him deteriorating or losing hope. But we have to be honest about what's actually changing in his body over time. In February 2026, he acknowledged that there are good days and bad days with his Parkinson's. That's what progression looks like in a disease like this. It's not a steady downhill slope where every day is the same. It's a variable experience where sometimes your body cooperates more and sometimes it doesn't. The unpredictability itself becomes exhausting because you never know what version of yourself you're going to get on any given day. The medication routine he's on tells you something about how serious this is. Favre takes medication every 4 hours to manage his symptoms and slow progression. That's not a single pill in the morning, and you're done for the day. That's a structured, disciplined approach to managing a disease that doesn't stop attacking your nervous system just because you went to sleep or had a good day.
Doing a couple of different alternative things along with taking what's called Cinemet, which is the medicine that probably 90% of the people with Parkinson's takes.
Cinemet is the medication that approximately 90% of Parkinson's patients take, and it works as a synthetic replacement of dopamine, which is the chemical that Parkinson's depletes in your brain. But Favre understood that relying on a single approach wasn't enough for him.
That is a synthetic replacement of dopamine, which is what Parkinson's really is a depletion of dopamine. So this, I stay on this medicine. I feel somewhat normal for the most part. I'm trying like some stem cell and some exosomes.
So he was trying multiple things simultaneously. He was trying stem cells. He was trying exosomes. He was doing metal purges of his body. He was combining conventional medicine with alternative treatments, treating his condition like someone who refused to accept that science had done all it could do. If there was even a small chance that something might help, he was willing to try it. The legend and the cost. To understand what's being taken from Favre, you need to know exactly what he built over 2 decades in professional football. Because this isn't just a story about someone getting sick. This is about what the game demanded from him and what it's costing him now. Brett Favre was born on October 10, 1969, in Gulfport, Mississippi. He grew up in a place called Kiln, Mississippi, in a football-centric family. His father, Irvin, was a high school coach, which meant that football wasn't something the Favre household did for fun. It was the language they spoke. It was how they understood the world. He attended the University of Southern Mississippi, and from the moment he arrived on campus, he made an impact. Favre started as a freshman and set numerous school records despite playing for a smaller program. He was a second-team All-South independent selection in 1990. The University of Southern Mississippi retired his number 4 jersey, cementing his place in the school's history. But college success doesn't guarantee anything in professional football. In the 1991 NFL Draft, Favre was selected 33rd overall in the second round by the Atlanta Falcons. He appeared in just 2 games as a rookie, completing 0 of 4 passes with limited action. It looked like his NFL career might be over before it really started. In 1992, Favre was traded to the Green Bay Packers for a first-round pick. He took over as the starter in Week 3 after Don Majkowski got injured. From that moment on, he never relinquished the role. The next 16 seasons with the Packers were unlike anything professional football had seen before. Favre led the Packers to 11 playoff appearances, 7 division titles, 4 NFC championship games, and 2 Super Bowl appearances. He won Super Bowl XXXEI in 1996, defeating the New England Patriots 35-21, and he lost Super Bowl XXXE in 1997 to the Denver Broncos. The individual accomplishments were staggering. Favre won 3 consecutive NFL MVP awards from 1995 through 1997, becoming the only quarterback in history to achieve that feat. In 1995 alone, he led the NFL with 413 passing yards and 38 touchdowns. He was selected to 11 Pro Bowls during his career, and he earned first-team All-Pro honors 3 times, from 1995 through 1997. He led the NFL in touchdown passes 4 different times and set multiple records for passing yards and completion percentage. But what made Favre truly legendary wasn't just the statistics. His signature trait was an improvisational style, combined with a strong arm and a willingness to take risks that led to thrilling plays and game-winning drives. He was famous for playing through injuries that would have sidelined normal quarterbacks. When his father, Irvin, died in 2003, Favre famously played the very next day, throwing 4 touchdown passes in a victory. That wasn't just athletic performance, that was someone refusing to let anything take him off the field. Favre started 297 consecutive regular season games from 1992 through 2010, setting an NFL record for durability, and that streak extended to 321 consecutive games including the playoffs. For 18 straight years, he showed up, he played, he competed, he did it in Green Bay, a place where winter football means sub-freezing temperatures, wind chills that could kill you if you weren't careful. After his tenure with the Packers, he spent 2 seasons with the New York Jets starting in 2008, leading them to a 9-7 record. In 2009, he signed with the Minnesota Vikings and had one of his statistically best seasons with a career-high 202 yards and low interceptions of only 7, leading the Vikings to the NFC Championship game. He threw for over 40 yards at age 40. He played until 2010 before a shoulder injury ended his time in Minnesota. He retired after 2010, holding records for most career passing yards at 71,838, TDs at 508, completions at 6,300, and attempts at 1,069. He was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2016 on the first ballot. His legacy includes being the first QB to beat all 32 teams, reach 70 yards and 500 TDs, but this legendary career came at a cost that nobody fully understood at the time. The durability that made him a legend was also an accumulation of damage. Every consecutive game he played was another opportunity for head trauma. Every season in Green Bay, every frozen field, every hit that sent his brain rattling inside his skull was a deposit in an account that would eventually need to be paid back. Here's where the devastating truth emerges. Favre's Parkinson's didn't appear in a vacuum. It appeared in the body of a man who spent 2 decades absorbing punishment that would have killed a normal human being. The connection between head trauma and Parkinson's disease isn't a mystery anymore. Research shows that even a single concussion increases Parkinson's risk by 57%. Think about that. One hit. 57% increased risk. Now multiply that by the hundreds or thousands of times Favre took shots to the head during his career. The math becomes terrifying. When Favre talks about his estimates of hundreds, maybe thousands of concussions, Parkinson's, he's not being dramatic. In the early 1990s and 2000s, when Favre was in his prime with the Green Bay Packers, the medical establishment didn't understand concussions the way we understand them now. Ringing ears and seeing stars were just routine parts of the job that players would shake off and go back into the game for the next play. There was no testing. There was no neurological evaluation. It was just to play football and deal with whatever symptoms you had. The problem is that your brain was never designed to absorb that kind of repeated impact. Every time you get hit in the head hard enough to cause a concussion, you're damaging neural tissue. You're affecting how neurons communicate with each other. You're disrupting the neurochemical systems that keep your brain functioning properly. Do that enough times, and you're setting the stage for degenerative conditions to develop later in life. Other retired NFL players have dealt with the same devastating situation. Forrest Gregg, who played for the Green Bay Packers and was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2011. He and his neurologist attributed it to concussions from a long career spanning high school, college, and 15 NFL seasons. Gregg remained active and served as a spokesperson for Parkinson's awareness, trying to raise consciousness about the connection between football and neurological disease. He died in 2019 at age 85 from complications of the disease. Dave Jennings, who was a punter for the New York Giants and Jets, was diagnosed with Parkinson's around 1995 or 1996. He was a four-time Pro Bowl selection known for his punting records with the Giants. He continued broadcasting after his playing career until health issues and fatigue from the disease made it impossible for him to continue. He died in 2013 at age 61 from complications of Parkinson's disease. Lou Groza, known as the Toe and a Hall of Famer for the Cleveland Browns, was diagnosed with Parkinson's in the 1990s. He played 21 seasons as both a place kicker and an offensive tackle, accumulating head impacts across two different positions and two different eras of football. He dealt with other health issues including back and hip surgeries alongside his Parkinson's disease, and he died in 2000 at age 76 from a heart attack. These aren't isolated cases. The NFL concussion settlement has processed hundreds of Parkinson's claims from retired players, with estimates putting the number at 275 submitted claims by early 2024. The settlement covers Parkinson's disease with awards up to $3.5 million depending on the criteria. The fact that the NFL had to create a financial settlement for this disease among retired players tells you everything you need to know about how common the problem actually is. This is a systematic consequence of the way the game was played, the way head safety was ignored. Studies from 2023 and 2024 show that football players had higher odds of reporting Parkinsonism or Parkinson's disease compared to non-players. A mortality study of older NFL cohorts showed increased Parkinson's disease death risk. Higher Parkinsonism rates were documented in former professional players at 13.3% versus unexposed men. The research confirms what Favre has been saying all along. There's a real connection between football and this disease. The worst part about this connection is that Favre saw it coming. He invested in a company that was developing a breakthrough concussion drug because he understood the stakes. He knew that head trauma was dangerous. He knew that players needed better solutions. But when that investment didn't work out, when the breakthrough drug never materialized, Favre was already showing symptoms of Parkinson's. He realized that it was too late for him. The damage had already been done. The fight. So here's where we have to land on the central question of this whole situation. Is Brett Favre's health actually getting worse? Or are we just watching a progressive disease do what progressive diseases do by definition? The answer is yes to both of those things. Parkinson's is inherently progressive, which means that some worsening of symptoms over time is built into the very nature of the disease itself. It's not a matter of if symptoms will get worse, but when and how fast. Favre has described his progression as manageable so far, but challenging. He's acknowledged that the disease progressed a little faster than he would have hoped. But he's also made something very clear that separates the narrative from the reality.
Is the disease going to eventually dominate me, where I think right now I'm dominating the disease?
That's the real story. Favre knows the disease is there. He knows it's attacking his nervous system. But right now, he's the one in control.
There's no way to predict who is going to progress faster than others. We all age differently.
He's making the decisions. He's pushing back against it through medication, through exercise, through refusing to accept a narrative that he's given up or that the disease has won. The public reaction to his diagnosis has been mixed, reflecting the complicated relationship people have with Favre as a figure. Aaron Rodgers, who played for the Packers after Favre and succeeded him as the team's quarterback, called the news tough to hear. He expressed feeling bad for Favre and his wife Deanna. He acknowledged knowledge that health risks are part of the game that players understand and hope that medicine can address. Jordan Love, who's currently the Packers quarterback, offered prayers for Favre and recognized that players understand the risks they sign up for when they accept those repeated hits. Andrew Brandt, who was an executive with the Packers during parts of Favre's career, appeared visibly shaken in podcast discussions about the diagnosis, reflecting on the human cost of what the game demands from the people who play it. The broader NFL community and analysts have discussed it candidly on podcasts like The Pivot, featuring people like Channing Crowder and Fred Taylor. Former players have mixed honesty about the dangers of CTE and neurological damage, with well wishes and prayers for Favre. These are people who understand from lived experience what he's going through. But the most powerful reaction came from the fans themselves. When viral posts suggested in January 2026 that Favre had given up hope, fans and followers sent overwhelming prayers and encouragement. They sent messages on social media. They sent actual letters. They reached out with stories of their own family members dealing with Parkinson's, sharing their own struggles and victories in fighting the disease. His wife, Deanna, has been a crucial part of his support system, standing by him through the diagnosis and treatment. What makes Favre's situation unique compared to other players who've dealt with Parkinson's is his platform and his willingness to speak publicly about it rather than hiding it away. On April 11, 2026, for World Parkinson's Day, Favre posted a message of hope, urging others not to feel alone and to keep pushing through their own health battles. He's turned his diagnosis into advocacy. He's using his voice to raise awareness about the connection between head trauma and neurodegenerative disease. He's supporting research. He's offering hope to people dealing with their own health battles. The research community has taken notice. The data support the narrative. Favre isn't making this up or exaggerating. He's describing a real phenomenon that's affecting a real population of players. But here's what separates Favre's story from just another tragedy of football, just another casualty of the game. He's not simply accepting the disease, he's fighting it aggressively with medication, with exercise, with clinical trials, with alternative treatments that might help or might not, but are worth trying. He's treating his health like it's a new Super Bowl, a new challenge to dominate. Yes, his health is progressing. Yes, the disease is advancing. Yes, there are symptoms that are getting worse, but the progression isn't the end of the story. The real story is what happens when one of football's toughest competitors refuses to back down from an opponent that doesn't play by any rules, doesn't care about your legacy, and doesn't respect what you've accomplished. The disease doesn't care that he threw for nearly 72 yards and over 500 touchdowns. The disease doesn't care about his Hall of Fame induction or his MVP awards. But Favre cares about something the disease can't touch, and that's his spirit. As of mid-2026, there are no reports of severe new complications like advanced dementia or major mobility loss for Favre. He's still here. He's still fighting. He's still advocating. He's still believing that a cure might come in 5 to 10 years, that advances in medicine might catch up to his disease before it takes away everything he values. He spent 20 years as an Iron Man in football. Now he's an Iron Man against Parkinson's disease. And that's a battle that probably won't have a traditional victory, but it's a battle he refuses to lose.